Picture this. Two co-workers, Sarah and Marcus, both 28 years old, both making $75,000 a year at the same marketing firm. They sit in cubicles right next to each other, grab coffee from the same machine, complain about the same deadlines. On paper, their lives look identical. Same city, same company, same paycheck, same starting point. Fast forward 20 years, Sarah has built a net worth of over $2 million. Marcus is still living paycheck to paycheck, stressed about money every single month, wondering where it all went. Same income, completely different financial outcomes, and the gap between them has nothing to do with luck, inheritance, or finding the right investment at the right time. My name is Jimmy, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, investing, and the psychology behind how people use it. If you're someone who wants to understand money a little better, consider subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up. Now, when most people hear Sarah and Marcus's story, they immediately start guessing what Sarah did differently. Maybe she invested in the right stocks at the right time. Maybe she started a side business that took off. Maybe she was just naturally more disciplined with money than Marcus was. But the real difference runs much deeper than any of those explanations. It goes all the way down to how they each thought about money from the very beginning. And that difference in thinking led to thousands of small decisions over 20 years that compounded into two completely different financial realities. Here's what actually happened. During their first year at the company, Marcus looked at his $75,000 salary and immediately started thinking about what he could now afford. A nicer apartment than the one he had in college. A newer car because he was finally making real money. Better clothes because he was a professional now. Dinners out, weekend trips, a gym membership he actually liked. He saw his income as his spending power, and he used almost all of it. He wasn't being reckless. He was doing exactly what most people do when they start earning a real salary. He was living up to his income. Sarah looked at that same $75,000 and saw something completely different. She saw it as a wealth-building tool. She saw every dollar as something she could put to work. And that single difference in perspective changed every financial decision she made for the next 2 decades. But this creates a bigger problem that most people never even notice happening to them. The way you frame your income in your mind determines your entire financial trajectory, and most people frame it exactly the way Marcus did, because that's the frame we're given from the beginning. Earn money, spend money, repeat. Nobody teaches you to see your paycheck as raw material for building something. Marcus fell into what I call the income trap. The income trap is when you believe that your salary is your financial ceiling. You think, I make $75,000, so I live like someone who makes $75,000. When I get a raise to $85,000, I'll live like someone who makes $85,000. Your lifestyle becomes a direct reflection of your income, and your financial identity becomes inseparable from your job title and your paycheck. You're always calculating what you can afford based on what you earn, and the answer is always the same. You can afford almost exactly what you earn. Here's where things get interesting though. Sarah understood something that takes most people decades to figure out, if they figure it out at all. Your income doesn't create wealth. Your income creates the opportunity to build wealth. And that distinction sounds subtle, but it changes everything. Think about it this way. Your salary is like water flowing through a pipe. If you have a bucket positioned underneath that pipe, the water accumulates, and eventually you have something real, something you can use, something that gives you options. If you don't have a bucket, the water just flows away and disappears, and you're left with nothing but wet ground and the memory of water passing through. Your income is the water. Your wealth building system is the bucket. Marcus spent 20 years watching water flow past him. Every dollar that came in went right back out to lifestyle expenses, consumption, and keeping up with the people around him. He was always earning, always spending, always arriving at the end of the month with roughly the same amount in his bank account as he started with. Sarah spent 20 years building bigger and bigger buckets to catch that water, and here's the part that almost nobody talks about. Once those buckets got big enough, they started filling themselves. This is where most people make a fundamental mistake in how they think about wealth building. They focus almost entirely on increasing the flow of water, meaning they chase promotions, negotiate for higher salaries, look for side income, and more income can absolutely help. But income without a system to capture it is just temporary cash flow. You can double your salary and still end up with nothing to show for it, which is exactly what happened to Marcus over those 20 years. Let me walk you through specifically what Sarah did differently, because this isn't abstract. In her first year, while Marcus was upgrading his apartment and leasing a nicer car, Sarah was still living in a modest one-bedroom and driving the same used Honda she'd had since college. She took home about $5,200 per month after taxes, and instead of asking herself what lifestyle she could afford on that money, she asked herself a completely different question. How much can I pay myself first before I pay anyone else? She landed on $600 per month. That $600 went straight into a low-cost index fund before she touched anything else, before rent, before groceries, before any other expense. And then she built her entire lifestyle around the remaining 4,600. This might sound like a minor adjustment, but the psychology behind it is far more powerful than the math alone suggests. By paying herself first, Sarah was doing something profound. She was telling herself every single month that her future was more important than her present comfort. She was treating her future self as her most important financial obligation, and that monthly act of prioritization slowly rewired how she thought about money at every level. Marcus, meanwhile, got caught on what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill. Every raise he received was immediately absorbed by a lifestyle upgrade. $75,000 became $85,000, and his expenses followed right along. $85,000 became $95,000, same pattern. $100,000 became $115,000, still the same. He was always earning more, and always feeling like he needed just a little bit more to finally feel comfortable. The treadmill kept moving, and he kept walking, and he never actually got anywhere. And this is where most people make a mistake they genuinely cannot see while it's happening to them. When your lifestyle perfectly matches your income, you never feel like you're getting ahead because you aren't. You feel like you need your next raise to solve your financial problems. But the problem was never your income level. The problem is that you've trained yourself, through years of habit, to spend whatever comes in. Here's what makes this particularly dangerous. Marcus wasn't being irresponsible by most conventional definitions. He wasn't going into credit card debt. He was paying his bills on time. He had an emergency fund. He was contributing to his 401k enough to get the company match. By every standard measure of financial responsibility that we're typically taught, Marcus was doing fine. And yet, after 20 years, he had almost nothing to show for 2 decades of earning a solid income. The income trap is insidious precisely because it doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like normal life. It feels like you're living appropriately for your income level. It feels like you've earned the lifestyle you have. And you have earned it in the sense that you worked for the money that pays for it. But earning a lifestyle and building wealth are two completely different things. And most people spend their entire careers doing one while believing they're doing both. Now look, this isn't about judging how people spend their money or suggesting that everyone should live like an ascetic. Sarah wasn't depriving herself. She wasn't miserable. She was still enjoying her life, going out with friends, taking the occasional trip, buying things she wanted. The difference wasn't that she spent less overall. The difference was that she built a system first and lived within what was left, rather than spending everything and hoping to save what remained. Because here's the thing, what remains after lifestyle is almost always nothing. The lifestyle expands to fill the available space every single time. The income trap isn't a math problem, it's a psychology problem. And the way out isn't to earn dramatically more money, although that can help. The way out is to ask a different question at the beginning of every month. Not what can I afford, but what am I building? Not what does my income let me spend, but what does my income let me create? Sarah and Marcus both had the same raw material for 20 years. The only thing that separated their outcomes was the mental model they used to make decisions about that material. Marcus thought about money as something to consume. Sarah thought about money as something to deploy. And that difference, repeated in small decisions over 2 decades, created a gap of $2 million between two people who started in the exact same place. The income trap is real, it is common, and it is completely escapable. But escaping it starts with recognizing that you might already be inside it, even if everything about your financial life looks and feels perfectly normal.